Okay, I think it's live now. Okay, we can start recording now. Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, which is about passing the FRCR to be exams in June. It's specifically for those sitting in June, but actually it's relevant for people doing the exam anytime, really. And what I'm going to do is sort of go through again my top practice tips, um, best practices, and also some ways to prepare for the exam. I hope you really find this educational, and then we'll have some opportunities for questions and answers afterwards. Right. So Brian Tracy, who is a well-known motivational speaker and author, he talked about continuous learning being a minimum requirement for success. And most of us who are doctors, I think we are very used to continuous learning. So this is not something new to to you guys. There will be some time for questions at the end, but please type your questions in the chat box. Um, First of all, we're going to cover the rapid reporting. As you know, the exam has three components. Some of you have done it before. Some of you might be doing it for the first time. There are three components to the exam: the rapid reporting, the long cases, and the Vivas. And the rapid reporting, many people say some people consider that to be the hardest bit, but actually, I think it's one of the easiest parts of the exam to pass, partly because once you learn to know what's normal, it's quite easy to pick up the abnormals because in the exam, they're very straightforward. So there are 35 minutes to do 30 questions. When I did the exam, it was 30 minutes for 30 cases. It's the kind of cases you'll see in your A&E and GP pile when you go to work. And there can only be one abnormality in each radiograph. So it's quite important that you do not pick up two. And if there are seemingly two ones, you obviously choose the most obvious one. Between 40 and 60% will either be normal or abnormal, which gives with a pass mark in the exam of about 27, which is quite high if you consider that in daily practice, if you had a 10% miss rate, you'd be in pretty deep problems. But in the exam, obviously, they recognize that you're under stress and they give you some leeway for that. Um, I think the your plan for rapid reporting and many of the things I'm saying today, we've actually discussed in previous videos. There might be videos you've seen before, but the purpose of this and doing it live is really to give you is there is nothing like live. Okay, so the important bit is to develop a system for looking at each packet and develop a system at looking at each image. That is quite important. If you need to have a system for both, um, and I'll try and quickly show you what I reckon should be the kind of system that you use. So while I'm just speaking, I'm just getting a rapid reporting packet up, and I'm just going to show you the from my from our website. Okay, so let's just bring this over here, and let me just show you. So you go to a typical packet. Let's start with packet one, which you can see that I've practiced a lot on because I have to sort of demonstrate it to you guys in the exam. So you're going to first of all get a system for the packet, and this is what I recommend to be the system. Okay, so here you can choose to start with a timer or start the exam. In this case, I'll just start it with a timer anyway, so you can just see what that looks like. Okay, so the first thing, you get a case and you decide if it's normal or abnormal. Okay, what I would first of all do is press the little button here. This is in the exam, okay? So our viewer very closely simulates the exam. The only difference is really a little bit of color, and obviously we developed it ourselves. So you've got all the questions there. I would suggest you go through all the cases and pick up the abnormals. So that's an abnormal, write it down, write the answer, look at that. You see straight away the abnormality, put abnormal, write the answer down, go to the next one, look at that. Do you see anything abnormal? Quickly look at it. You don't see anything abnormal, just leave it. Okay, don't do anything. Next one, number 3. Um, this is abnormal. You've seen it. Write abnormal. Fill in the answers. Same thing with number 1. You said it was abnormal. So you can see that when I'm putting in the answers, it's coming up with a color. That means you've answered the question, okay? This one, you've answered the question. So when you answer it, it fills it up. And I would suggest you leave all the normals for now. So first of all, look at all the cases which have abnormalities, write in your abnormality. So if you see an abnormality, obviously, write it down straight away, put it as abnormal. If it's normal, I suggest you don't do anything at this stage. So quickly go through in the first, I think, 5 or 10 minutes, pick up all the obvious abnormals. Once you've gone through the whole packet looking at the abnormals, go back to the beginning and click the ones here that you've not highlighted, and start using a very thorough process. And that's what I meant by have a system for looking at the case. So for a chest x-ray, obviously you want to look at the heart, the mediastinum, behind the heart, the hilum, the upper zones, the lower zones, the bones. You could even, and if you learn these phrase codes or these numbers, you can actually press your keyboard and look for them. Now, one thing I recommend for chest X-rays is to rotate it 90 degrees to look at the bones, and rotate it again to look at the bones, because you see fractures much easier that way. Okay. And if you've kind of done too much to it, just press the E button, and that's E is reset. So learn these codes, P, Z, R, S, W, E, C, and start using the keyboard to do it. So that's what I really meant by a system. The other thing is when you're finished, so let me show you that again. When you finish the packet, what you can click here, you can also get your detailed analysis. It'll ask you, did you get this correct? You can say, yes, you got it correct or incorrect. Let's just say incorrect, and let's say incorrect again. Let's say correct, I don't know, whatever. And then you get the opportunity to get a mark. You can go and see the cases, and you can actually write notes next to them. Okay, so you can write a little note for yourself to remind yourself, and these notes will be available on your platform. Okay, on the platform, it'll be available for you to look up the last minute. What are the things that you kind of miss, you want to remember? So use the notes section. And finally, there's also a rapid reporting checklist. I'll show you where that is on the website. So if you click finish here, and go to revised radiology, go to, I think it'll be the library, then you can get the mind maps. And in the mind maps, I think it's under a musculoskeletal. You will get the one, or maybe actually rapid reporting. I think it may be under chest, actually. I think we'll try and make this easier. There's a rapid reporting checklist somewhere, which I thought it was under MSK. Let's see, where is it? There are quite a few. We will try and find a quicker way for you to find these. Maybe we'll keep a separate one called rapid reporting checklist. And then this is the one for lower limb. And then you can go through all the things that are in the checklist. And basically, this gives you the list of all the things you should be looking for. If you get a PEDS MSK, if you get a hip or thigh, these are the things you should be looking for. So it just gives you a quick way of kind of reviewing what the various um, things you should be looking for. Remember, the exam will not have certain diagnoses. So you won't get things like chondrosarcoma and that kind of diagnosis. They're usually fractures, and then in the chest, you can get your normal emergencies. Okay, not usually chronic conditions, although you can get bone cysts and things like that. So, in terms of a revision plan, review your statistics to measure your performance. Aim for 30 out of 30. It's possible. Aim for zero overcalls and keep doing all the packets till you get to the point where you are getting 29 to 30 in every packet. Okay. And in terms of a strategy, I would say spend the first 10 minutes looking for the abnormal films, as I said, then spend the next 15 minutes to confirm that the normals that you've left are normal and mark them as normal. Then flag every case that you're not sure about. There's a little flag button there in when you're doing the exam, as well as on our platform. Use the flag button and then ask yourself this question if you flagged it. That means I'm not sure if this is a fracture. Ask yourself the question, is this a textbook case? If your answer is no, then I suggest you put that as normal. Okay. Now, if you count only 15 abnormals, I would spend time looking through the 15 normals to see if there are two or three films that could be abnormal. But be very careful not to overcall. Okay. I would spend the last 5 minutes looking for mistakes like missing the site marker, mislabeling, that kind of stuff. For example, if it's a right side and you put left, you need to just make sure you've corrected that. Because if you get the wrong side on your text, what you've written down, you will not get any marks. And I would suggest you start using the system every time you practice. Now, the number one tool I say for passing the rapids is simulation. So simulate, practice in conditions that simulate the exam and practice trying to do those 30 cases in 25 minutes. Remember, each packet won't have more than 12 or 18 abnormals, okay? So it's usually that kind of ratio. Um, Amit Kalandri said experts were once amateurs who kept practicing. And I think those who have done these packets again and again, we've had people getting 30 over 30, I would say relatively often because of the practice they do with packets that are just like the exam. And that's one thing that you really need to make sure that if you choose a rapid reporting resource, please make sure that they simulate the exam. And the ones that we've got have been, gone through many, many times to simulate what you get in the exam. So practice, do 2 to 3 rapids every day, the next, 30 days. And then make checklists as you practice, because somehow when you start writing down checklists or typing it all out, it helps reinforce your memory. And then repeat 30 to 60 rapid reporting packets a month before the exam. The secret is in daily routine, and doing it consistently every day will get you through all the packets and give you the chance to do it once or twice. The 7 most common mistakes that people make is not having a plan, not having enough revision check resources like checklists, I would say not using, it's coming later, not analyzing your weak areas and working on them. And if you get areas that you overcall on frequently, you've got to make sure that you stop doing that. You've got to practice as if it's an exam. That means you don't just do 5 cases and then go take a coffee. You sit down for 30 minutes, 25 minutes, finish the packet. Not using software that simulates the exam, because that helps with timing, but it also gives you familiarity of the actual exam. And as far as I know, ours is one of those that do that. There may be others, but make sure they simulate the exam. And of course, overcalling is a big issue. So there are some courses that are run where they give you very hard cases, which you don't get in the exam, and you end up becoming an overcaller. They are difficult cases, but remember that in the FRCR exam, it has to be what we call a barn door case, a very typical case. There should be no ambiguity on whether this is normal or abnormal. And a good radiologist should be able to make the difference. So we're now going to move into the long cases. And here, I think my top quote is, a bad system will beat a good person every time. So in the longs, the most common mistake people make is not mentioning the relevant negative findings, not listing differentials in order of likelihood, not limiting the number of differentials to around 2 or 3, and not including further appropriate investigation. So here, let's just look at some of the long cases. So let's go back to the website. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the 2B session, and I'm going to open the long cases. I'll show you where I am. Okay, so here we are in the long cases. We'll open the curated packets. I'm going to just open packet 1. Okay. And while it's opening, what I'll do is I'll just talk to you about the main thing. So first, go through all the cases to spot the easy ones. Okay. And then your aim is to finish as many of the easy cases as possible quickly. If there are any cross-sectional studies like CT or MR, look at them first, and then scan through the modalities and sequences for clues or the diagnosis. Okay, so let's just go through the website now. So let's start with the timer. You've got the timer out there, it helps you. So the first thing I would do, I would open this out. Okay, so you've got all the sort of numbers there. Then I would go through all the cases to see what cases there are and see how many have very few images. And I would start with them. So first of all, I would start with case 6, maybe do case 4, then jump to, let's say, case 2, case 1, and then only do case 5 maybe, and then finally do this one, which is case 3. And when you look at a case, don't start with the X-ray straight away. If you have a case like this, look at the MR first, because when you look at the MR, you might see the diagnosis straight away, and then it might make it easier for you to then write that there is a sclerotic margin. Okay, so that's my top advice, the way you do it. And that way you will make sure that you've at least written some notes for the easy cases. Make sure that you've timed yourself so you don't go over the top. I think aiming for about 10 minutes per case and spending only around 7 to 8 in the easy cases will help you. So those that have just one image or 2 images, try and finish them super fast so you have time to work on the other ones. Now, here's the things that will slow you down. One is searching for keyboard shortcuts. So what I referred to there are these shortcuts. For example, if I pressed R on my keyboard, it automatically opens R. I can do it. If I press W, I can window. If I press S, I can scroll, which I can't do in this case. And if I press E, it should go back to reset. So that's why they give you that little letter there. That's a letter to help you on the keyboard. Okay. So that's searching for keyboard shortcuts, and practicing with keyboard shortcuts is important. Don't use long sentences. You just need to let the examiner know that you have found it. So use bullet points, I'd suggest, and I would suggest that you use a good template. Okay. Now I don't know if the whole template is here, but what you want is a template that has the findings, the uh, management. Sorry, for what I refer to is in management. If you copied further investigations and referral to, and you put that little hyphen and you copy that across the board, it could help you. But I have heard that this could be a problem as well because you might forget. So I'd like to just say, perhaps just um, uh, think about having a template which you copy and paste every time you click management. Okay. So what I mean by that, let me see if I can show you what I mean. So here, let's say you make a template for management and you say further, further investigations, and you press hyphen, and then you say management or treatment or whatever. Let me see, what was the word for it? Further investigations, or you say referral to. You could copy and paste this every time you could fill that into those boxes. It just saves you time straight away and helps as an aid memoir. Okay. Um, so get a plan together. All time management starts with planning. So plan in advance how you're going to sit the exam. Um, get the right ability. And I want to also say typing skills are very good, are very useful. So put a little bit of effort into typing skills. Okay, learning typing skills. It'll help you a lot. And getting the right attitude is incredibly important. Believe in your ability to pass the Vivas. Now we're going to move into the Vivas. Okay, so it's really important in the whole exam, whether it's rapids or longs. It's important that you get the right attitude, and this is uh, absolutely important when it comes to the Vivas. And you've got to first of all believe I'm going to pass. Then you've got to polish your skills and reporting, and then you need to behave as a good, as a successful Viva candidate. And the questions I would ask myself is: are you putting in the same? Are you putting in hours? Are you seeing cases? Are you practicing with a colleague? Do you have study groups set up? Um, and you need to be able to show that you know what you're talking about to the examiner. And so practicing with colleagues and different kind of people, not the same study partner, will give you that sort of experience that you need to see whether to help you, decide if you have the right, skills for it. Let me just try and move this thing. Okay, right. So let's start with the 8 script process to improve your Vivas. So if you see a case, the first thing I would say is describe the image. So this is a chest X-ray of a adult patient. And start listing out all your positive findings. Give an interpretation. For example, in some cases, you can say it's well defined, or it's speculated. You could say speculated, and therefore it looks neoplastic. And then mention your negative findings, things like pleural effusions. For example, if you're looking at a chest X-ray and you see a tumor, you want to give the negatives to show that you know that you're trying to rule out metastases. Then say, I'm looking at my review areas, because that gives the examiner a sense that you're being safe. Say your diagnosis then. The most likely diagnosis is, and it's important to not be kind of um, clumsy about this. You've got to be definitive if possible. The most likely diagnosis for this is because of the findings that you've just described, as well as the fact that when the examiner gave you clinical information, you're showing that you've taken into account, which is very good for a clinical radiologist. And then you can say some differentials. If there are differentials, you can say the differentials include 1, 2, 3. And then you can say these are less likely because of this. Okay. And then I would ask for the management of this patient would include recommending the following studies to confirm the diagnosis. And if these are negative, I would do the following investigations to rule out and, show them that what tests you do to rule out your differential diagnosis. Then you say, I would recommend referral to, if it's a surgeon or an MDT, you can say that. And really good phrase is with a view to, and say the treatment, because then the examiner knows that you know what the treatment is. I've seen some really good candidates do this, which is they have a summary in the end. And the advantage with a summary is it collects their thoughts. If the examiner hasn't been listening because they're tired or anything, they are able to listen again to what you're saying, and it really gives a good impression to the examiner. So to give a summary where it's relevant, like especially if in a long case, is really a clever thing to do. So you've got to practice, okay? And this quote here, would you like me to give you a formula for success? It's quite simple, really. Double your rate of failure. And it's definitely important that you get failure before the exam. And you practice with consultants or even colleagues. And we have found that the study groups that we run has been incredibly helpful. So even if you don't join, revise, I suggest you find yourself about 10 study partners and form a group and, you know, practice with each other so that you get a wide variety, especially if you can find people in the UK who are trainees in the UK or trainees in Singapore and India and all these countries. You get a variety of, you help each other a little with the study group. So I find that people in certain countries, they have a lot of theory knowledge, but they may not know much about management. They may not know much about how to present, and learning from one another is really helpful. Okay. Um, so with that expert guidance, you can't help. So it's definitely important, I think, to attend a couple of courses and attend Viva days if you can get them, where you get to be on the hot seat. You've got to present yourself as a safe radiologist. That is absolutely crucial. Okay. And to present yourself as a safe radiologist, let me just go through what is the criteria for passing this exam. First of all, we cover the fail. When people get a 4, and remember the scoring is between 4 and 8, the reason is that they've missed their key findings, they've got a wrong or dangerous diagnosis. They may even get what we call a bare fail, which is because they're slow to spot the abnormality, or they give poor differentials and they needed the help. They needed the examiner to prompt them. A 6 is where they see the abnormalities. They needed a little bit of help, but not a lot of help. They got the principal diagnosis correct and they gave a differential. But if you do anything more than that, like you quickly pick up your sort of succinct presentation, you get your correct diagnosis, you make the correct deductions, you've offered a good differential, you'll get a 7, and an 8 is where there are absolutely no errors. Okay. Now, in the exam, every modality counts because it's not a case that they mark you in necessarily. If you have a chest X-ray and a CT, they might mark you on the chest and the CT separately. So each of them will get 4 to 8 marks. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One of them. And then they will, at the end of the exam, they will add it all up together. They will divide it by the number of cases, which is what results in your final score. And I think one of the reasons that people fail the Vivas is because they don't reset. That means that after they get a difficult case, they keep dwelling, they get nervous, they keep dwelling on that case. Every case is an opportunity to redeem yourself if you're doing badly, and an opportunity for you to shine. Okay, if so, you've got to reset your mindset, and you've got to report every modality with enough detail for them to give you a score. This is a typical Viva score, this marking sheet. This is the one we use for our Southwest FRCR course. So the examiner would have written the diagnosis, they're given the modalities, they'll give the main points, and then they'll give this sheet to their co-examiner. And the co-examiner will be marking you on observation, interpretation, deduction, clinical, the use of clinical information, clinical management, and whether you're safe. And safety trumps everything. So if you're not safe, so for example, this might be a typical example of a marking in a set of cases. This candidate, he got 555, 65, he got 5.2, 5.8 in the other case, 6.56, 6.83, but he passed overall, even though he failed two cases. So he clearly managed, he or she clearly managed to redeem themselves and do well at the end. Now, examiners, um, they want a good pass or a good fail. Or a bad fail. It's really hard for them if you're a borderline candidate. So make sure that you give them a good pass. The key to success is to focus on goals and not look at your obstacles. So now you've got, let's say in June, we've got about 2.5 months to really crack this. You've got the whole of April, the whole of May, and a bit more to crack this exams. Think of what you need to do to pass. You've spent a lot of money trying to sit this exam. You might as well make it count. I strongly recommend you do not sit an exam unless you're ready. Exam spaces come up all the time. That means that people drop off at the last minute and an exam space will come up. You may not have been preparing for the exam and you may be tempted to just give it a go, try. Not only does a fail affect your morale, it also takes off one of the chances you have to pass. And and the loss of morale is huge, okay? I don't recommend you take the advice that people have said saying I passed in 1 month. I don't believe it. I absolutely don't believe you can pass this exam in 1 or 2 months of practice. UK candidates don't do it. Such people have been practicing for a long time. They just they increased their intensity a little bit. So don't believe anyone who says you can pass this exam in a few months. Unless you're extremely good and you've been doing this, you've just finished your residency or something. I would suggest you need at least 3 to 6 months to pass. Okay. um, you can do it in 2 months, but you'll have to give up your job and really put in the practice. Your goals is to try to make the examiner's job as easy. Show competence, safe practice. Do not waste your time on the hot seat. Try to see as many cases as possible during the Viva to get a better score. Avoid these mistakes. Don't miss life-threatening conditions. So whenever you look at a film, if it's a bone or something, always think bone tumor first. Make sure you don't miss the obvious. If you get a chest, always think of the pneumothoraces, the pneumomediastinums, cancers. Just make sure that you have a list of the life-threatening things or things which, if you miss, would affect the patient. So get yourself a list of those and look for them. Have a script. I gave you a script. Use that script. Don't stay silent. So when you get a case, it's sensible to give a few seconds to collect yourself, to start looking, but start talking. And even if you haven't come up with a process, express what you're seeing. so that the examiner is watching the way that you think. You need to know some information, so you need to have some basic knowledge about two-way related stuff. So know a little bit about that, and definitely mention management. Not mentioning management is a killer. You really need to know your management. Now, great boxers use visualization as shadow boxing to prepare for fights. And you've got to visualize yourself sitting in front of the examiner every time you present. And I would say get yourself some sets of 15-minute cases. If you're part of the study groups, then we provide you with those sets and you practice with 15 minutes sets, and your co-examiner or the other candidate will examine you, and then for 15 minutes, and then give you some feedback, and then you do the same for the other candidate. That's how the study groups work. And we give you 15-minute sets. You'll have 2 sets every day for 6 days a week. Okay. So it's very intense, and they're all new cases. We've got in total about 12,000 cases, and we've chosen the best of those cases, some of the very good ones to use in the study groups. But there's also another opportunity for you to see some good cases is to come to the monthly online Vivas, which are consultants who have passed the exam who are giving you Vivas, and you get an opportunity to observe people doing hot seats. There are 4 types of Viva cases, in my opinion. There's the classic case, which you straight away observe. You just look at it, you see it. You must have a script prepared for these chests, bone tumors, bone lesions. Bone lesions. Have a script ready. Um, find out the age of the patient and have a script for that. This is another classic. You straight away know that's a subarachnoid. Have a script ready for it. You might also get a obvious abnormality in an atypical location. Then that's one where you describe it. You might get a case where you have to piece together details. So, for example, you've got your gallstone ileus kind of case. No, again, get a script for a gallstone ileus and speak about the positive things. And if you don't see negatives, you can say, I don't see the negatives. Again, another case here, you see an effusion there, multiple findings you need, you get an MR and you see the loose body, you straight away see the abnormality there. So piece together. This is another tied together case where you've got the arthritis cases. Those are also cases where you've got a pattern of presentation that you can use. There are rare cases which you should be known about, and things like mesoplastic nephroma and all. It's good to know these cases, the unminis. And in our opinion, and the people who pass, we believe that they've practiced doing Vivas at least 1,500 times. They've been in the hot seat, they've practiced with cases, they've put in the effort, and people like that pass. So my question to you is, how many cases can you report in front? If you want to get a plan, ask yourself, how many times can you practice a case in front of the mirror every week, or just visualizing your scripts? How many cases can you report in your hospital every week? You could use your hospital as a place to work, as a place to practice. How many cases will you see in the 2 monthly online Vivas? Approximately, there are about 15 times. So you see about 60 cases in one day. How many will you see in the study group? So again, you will see 14 per day for 5 or 6 days, about 80 a week. So you see a huge number of cases, and then think about the cases in courses. Typically, you see about 15 cases every 1 hour or so, 1.5 hours or so. So you know the kind of effort you need to put in to see the broad range of cases. The other thing is to also, there are consultants like Dr. Khan and Dr. Curtis, who run free sessions, which they'll just go through lots of cases. So obviously, you can use those to see a large number of cases. They're free. You might as well attend them. And we have a case of the day, which is on Facebook and on the Telegram group, which I think I'm going to ask Mariana to put the link if you're not part of that. You can do those cases as well. Every day there's one case. Um, so I would say just keep practicing and practicing and practicing, and you know you could really do well. Now, I think I'm probably going to hand over to Joanna now to take over. Joanna is sort of running our marketing and sales now, and she can go through the various opportunities there are in revised radiology, which I think you'll find useful. And in my opinion, the scholarship program is absolutely unpaddled. And I can see on the group, on the number of people who are here, there are a few scholarship candidates, and they can probably put in the text how they found it. But the scholarship program is absolutely fantastic. We give up to a 50% scholarship, and if you're in an extremely difficult economic position, please let us know. We might be able to increase that.